Hey everyone, Michael here, co-founder of Studicata. Just want to officially welcome you to our evidence course. I'm extremely excited to have you all here as we begin our evidence journey, really navigating the federal rules of evidence together. But before we jump into any of the federal rules, any black letter law, I think the best place to start is really just to try to gain a basic understanding of how to actually approach an evidence fact pattern. So I typically start when I'm introducing evidence with a really basic analogy. I do apologize if any of you have seen me give evidence lectures before. You've probably heard this one, but just to make sure we're all on the same page here, right? I typically think of evidence and approaching an evidence fact pattern like hurdlers at a track meet. So if you'll bear with me for a second, right? Imagine that we're at a track meet and we have the runners lining up in a hurdling race, right? And if you've never seen hurdles, you've never been to a track meet, right? No problem. It's very straightforward, right? You're gonna have runners line up. Typically you have 8 lanes, but we're just gonna draw 3 to make it easier, right? And so you have runners that are going to line up. And the thing that makes hurdles unique as an event at a track meet, right, is that there are barriers placed on the track that the runners have to jump over, right? We call these hurdles, right? So I'm gonna draw some hurdles on our track right here. And the objective to cross the finish line and finish the race for each runner is to run and jump over each hurdle, right, and get over the finish line. Whoever crosses the finish line first, of course, is the winner. So how is this like evidence, right, or like an evidence fact pattern? Well, this is very similar to how you're actually going to structure your essay. And think about it. If you imagine each one of these runners as a different piece of evidence, right? Maybe this runner is the murder weapon. Maybe this runner is a statement that was made to a police officer, right? Maybe this runner is an email we're trying to have admitted into court. All these runners are a different piece of evidence. Well, to get admitted into court or to cross the finish line into court, right? We could draw a courthouse over here. Imagine we have a courthouse on this end of the finish line. To cross all of the hurdles and get into court, what are each of these pieces of evidence going to have to do? Right? Well, they're going to have to get over all of the federal rules of evidence, right? These hurdles really represent all of these different federal rules, right? For evidence to be admitted into court, it has to get over, each piece of evidence separately has to get over every hurdle, every federal rule of evidence. And along the way, right, lots of pieces of evidence are going to hit hurdles that they can't get over. And that rule is going to knock that evidence out. It's never going to cross the finish line. It will not be admitted into court, right? So literally, on an evidence essay, on an evidence fact pattern, the way that you're going to lay out your essay, right, from my experience, the best way to do this is by actually starting each header with a different piece of evidence. So imagine, right, this is your piece of paper or your computer screen nowadays for the kids, right, taking exams on computers, right? We'll have headers, right? That's how you're typically going to format your essay. So on an evidence essay, what are each of your headers going to be? Right? These headers are each going to be a different piece of evidence. So again, this could be the murder weapon, right? This would be evidence number 1. So you'd have header, right? Murder weapon. And then under that, what is your issue going to be? Well, your main gateway issue is always going to be, is it admissible, right? And then you'll have evidence number 2, evidence number 3, right? Each of these is a different piece of evidence. And your issue is going to be, well, is the evidence admissible, right? And so below each header, you're going to then have subheaders that are each different hurdle that that evidence has to get over to be admitted. So all of your subheaders, right, will be all of the federal rules of evidence, all the stuff we have up here on the board. All of these are your hurdles. These are going to be your subheaders on your evidence essay. Each one of these are going to be the hurdles that that piece of evidence has to get over. Now, of course, right, It's not that every single federal rule of evidence is going to apply to each piece of evidence, right? You're going to have to make some determinations based on the facts and the type of evidence involved, what federal rules are at issue. You're not going to run through the whole, federal rule handbook on each piece of evidence. But obviously, right, within reason, you'll do your issue spotting, and we'll talk about that as we go. But that's right, when we're thinking about how to approach an evidence essay or an evidence fact pattern, this is the idea, right? You're going to have headers at the top that are each piece of evidence, and then you're going to run them through the hurdles. Can this evidence cross all of the relevant hurdles to get into court, right? To get past all of the hurdles and get into court, right? My horrible courthouse, but that's going to be the question. Can each piece of evidence get over the necessary hurdles to be admitted into court? And just from some procedure stuff, right? Before we start jumping into any type of overview topics, just to make sure we're really all on the same page here. In real life, who's making the decision whether a piece of evidence can cross all the hurdles it needs to cross to be admitted into court? Who is ultimately making that determination? Well, that is a question of law, right? And questions of law are reserved for the judge. So from a procedure standpoint, right, what's going to happen when we have a trial? The parties are going to come to court and they're going to present evidence, right? Or at least the party who is filing the action. In a criminal case, this would be the prosecution charging a criminal defendant with a crime. In the civil context, this would be a plaintiff suing a defendant alleging a claim, right? In either event, though, right, you're going to have the parties to the action, so you'll have the parties to the action come forth, and they're going to have to put forth this, obviously too, starting with the plaintiff or the prosecution, whoever it is, whether it's a civil or criminal case, are going to have to prove whatever it is that they're alleging. And how do they do this? They're going to have to put forth evidence. So we'll get to court, and there will be evidence presented, right? And so from there, if the parties come forward and they present evidence, before the jury can hear that evidence, the judge is going to look at the evidence and make sure that it actually can cross all of the hurdles it needs to cross, right, to be admissible. If the judge gives the okay, then the evidence gets actually presented in court, and the jury, right, can consider the evidence at the close, right? They go back, they'll deliberate. Of course, the jury is the finder of fact, so the jury will use the evidence to determine what actually happened, what are the facts of the case. Once they establish the facts, they will return a verdict, right? So the procedure is pretty straightforward, right? A party is going to allege a claim. It could be the prosecution in a criminal case or the plaintiff in a civil case. They're going to have to put forth evidence to prove their case, right? The judge has to okay that evidence saying it's admissible. We're going to let the jury consider this evidence. It meets all of the requirements, crosses all of the hurdles, right? Then it gets presented in court. The jury is then going to consider the evidence that they're allowed to consider, right? That the evidence that's crossed all the necessary hurdles, and then they will establish the facts of the case and render a verdict based on the evidence they have been allowed to hear, right? So this is the basic procedure. Also notably, right, the judge doesn't automatically consider every piece of evidence like I kind of just phrased it. I'm just doing that for our purposes, right? A party oftentimes has to actually object, right? The other party who doesn't want the evidence in the court would have to actually either, if it's pre-trial, right, file a motion for suppression, or if it's happening during trial, right, objection, relevance, Your Honor, right? Either way, though, it's going to go through the judge. We're not really concerned about the procedural aspects, how you raise objections and that type of stuff in an evidence course, right? Again, all we're really focused on is this one question we have up here at the top of the board. Is it admissible, right? This is what we are trying to do on an evidence fact pattern. So you are playing judge. You are determining whether each piece of evidence is admissible. Are we going to let the jury hear this evidence and consider this evidence in rendering their verdict, right? And of course, on an evidence fact pattern, we're not really going to be worried about objections and that type of stuff, typically outside the scope of an evidence course, right? Your only job is going to be able to determine whether the evidence is admissible or not admissible. How are you going to do this? Well, again, typically, and what our scope is going to be in this course and what it is in law school, typically in the bar exam, is going to be the federal rules of evidence, right? These are your main tools. These are the hurdles that the evidence has to get over. So for our purposes, I've really broken the federal rules that we're going to cover, at least in this course. And I have to believe that these are the most tested rules, right? I've selected what I think out of the federal rules are the things that are just the absolute most tested, most common, must-know stuff, right? And I've taken those and really put them into 4 major categories for us to think about, right? So we have number 1, relevance; 2, testimonial evidence; 3, tangible evidence; and finally, the last thing we're going to cover is going to be hearsay. Right, so relevance, right? And we can just overview these very, very broadly. And then, of course, in future videos, we're going to break all of these down in a ton of detail. So don't worry about trying to understand anything, very specifically. In this lesson, right, we're going to break all of this stuff down that you see on the board in a ton of detail. All we really want to think about is from a big picture perspective in this video, right? Really just how to approach an essay. So starting with relevance, though, to kind of overview, relevance is always our gateway issue. This is our threshold question, right? The federal rules tell us that evidence. Thank you so much for watching this video preview of our Legal Education Accelerator Program, or LEAP for short. If you would like to see the conclusion of this video and gain full access to our entire 1L and 2L video library, integrated outlines, streamable audio versions, additional practice exams with explanations, and much more, we invite you to head over to our website and join the thousands of law students who have already enrolled. To get started with your no-risk free trial today, simply click the link in the description box below or visit www.studicata.com/leap.
Hi everyone, my name is Serena and I'm currently a law student at South Texas College of Law, Houston.
Hi everybody, my name is Shiva and I'm currently a law student at Southwestern.
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle and I am a first-year student at South Texas College of Law, Houston. I used the Studicata study video series last semester to help me prepare mostly for contracts, and I actually made an A+ in contracts last semester, which I greatly dedicate to the Studicata videos.
By using Studicata to help me prepare for my final exam, I was able to score the highest grade out of my class on the final and even have my essay distributed as the model answer. Not to mention I had done quite poorly on the midterm and was struggling throughout the whole course of the semester, understanding the material and keeping up with lectures.
Because of the Studicata video lectures, I was able to go into my exams with a feeling of confidence. I didn't have to worry about what the rules of law were or how I was going to organize my answer to an essay question.
I would absolutely recommend the Studicata series and their online course materials to anyone. I think that they are not like professor lectures that you might find online or other outside study materials that you may encounter. I think that the Studicata videos really focus on not only ensuring that you understand the material that you're going to encounter on your final, but they also help you to understand kind of the best method for test taking, and they really break down how to approach each problem and the best ways to tackle certain methods on testing, and I think that's really important, and I think it's really special. I don't see that anywhere else in any of the other online resources that I've found. So I would certainly recommend Studicata to anyone who is studying in law school right now. Good luck on your studying, and you're going to do great.
I would definitely recommend Studicata to anybody watching this video. Give it a chance. I'm positive that you will love it, that you will get a lot out of it. and that you will be happy that you gave it a chance. I definitely am. I know I will be using Studicata in the future.
And I cannot thank Studicata enough for getting me through my first semester of law school. I will definitely continue to watch the Studicata video lectures throughout my law school career, and I highly recommend that any future or current law student do the same.